It's been 8 years, 3 months, and 17 days since I said goodbye without saying farewell. And now, stepping back onto this soil I once called home, I realize time hasn't done me the favor of erasing what I most wanted to forget, nor what I most feared facing again. There's a specific weight to returning to a place where the heart still aches for something torn away without anesthesia. My name is Anneliese Everdawn. To the world, I'm just the princess, heir to a house laden with ceremonial titles, diplomatic obligations, and a past stitched together by alliances. But here, in this small town where it all began, I'm just a woman who left too soon, left a true love behind, and spent years trying to silence the name that still pulses in the pauses of my breath, Nathan. I remember exactly the last moment I saw him. He didn't know it was the last. We were 19, 2 bodies in love, and an entire world against us. I loved him with a force that hurt my chest, but when the call came, the demand, the weight of duty, I went like someone leaping off a cliff, hoping the wind would soften the fall. And I never wrote, never called, never told him I was leaving, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't choose. I convinced myself he'd forget, move on, that his pain would fade faster than mine. But now, after all these years, returning to this town because of my grandmother, and something burning in me like a poorly healed wound, I know I've been lying to myself all along. Because if it were a lie, my chest wouldn't ache like this just at the thought of seeing him. And even if he's forgotten me, even if he's erased me from every part of his life, I came back. I came back because I carry a truth I've never stopped feeling. And before it's too late, he needs to know, I still love you. Returning was like opening an old book and finding between yellowed pages traces of tears I didn't even remember shedding. Every corner of this town holds a fragment of what we were. The cafe where he waited for me with that calm gaze and his jacket always slung over the chair. The hidden trail behind the orchard, where we said the world could stop because we were there. Even the train station where I boarded alone, without looking back, as if that would shield me from guilt. But none of those memories prepared me for the feeling of seeing his name on a sign, Cole's Garden Design, right at the main street's entrance. My heart faltered, not because of the name, but because of the silent confirmation that he stayed, that he built something here, and that now I'm the outsider, the one who left, the one who abandoned. I waited 2 days to show up, not out of cowardice, but because I needed to gather enough courage to face what my absence caused. I went to the greenhouse that now bears his name, wearing not my status nor my defenses, but a light dress and the vulnerability it pained me to hide for years. And when I saw him standing with his back to me, sleeves rolled up and hands covered in soil, my body froze. It was him. More man, more solid, more assured, but the same. The broad shoulders, the precise movements, the dense silence. My name didn't come out. My voice vanished. I could only watch him for seconds that felt eternal, until he turned. When our eyes met, everything inside me trembled. He didn't smile. He didn't approach. He just looked at me like someone seeing an old ghost, a memory he thought he'd buried. Anneliese, he said, and the sound of my name in his mouth was like a whisper crossing years of distance. I wanted to say something, anything, but I could only breathe. And in that breathing, I knew he still hurt in me. And by that steady gaze, I knew I still hurt in him too. There was no embrace, no anger, just the raw tension of 2 worlds colliding again. And though he didn't say it, I felt it. He wanted to know why I left, why I didn't fight, why now. But all I could manage, with a trembling voice and my heart in my throat, was, I needed to see you. And he replied, firm but restrained, You've seen me. Then he turned back to his flowers, as if each petal were worthier of his attention than I was. And maybe they were. Because those who abandon don't demand. Those who wound wait. And I waited, not for forgiveness, but for a chance. A chance to show that despite all the pain and all the mistakes, my love for him never left. In the days that followed, the town seemed to breathe more slowly, as if it too needed to digest my presence. I was no longer the girl who ran barefoot on my grandmother's estate or picked lavender with hands still stained with paint. Now I was the visitor carrying the weight of a title on my shoulders and the silence of an unexplained absence in my eyes. People looked at me with restrained curiosity, as if they wanted to ask what I was doing here, but lacked the courage to cross the line of formality. Maybe they thought I'd returned for family events or summer nostalgia. No one imagined, or perhaps everyone did, that I'd come back for him. I crossed paths with Nathan 3 more times before we exchanged anything beyond glances. He feigned indifference with a painful perfection. He answered my attempts at kindness with cold formality, not hostile, but with the calculated precision of someone who'd learned to protect himself. And yet, there was something in the way he averted his eyes, the half-second pause before responding, that betrayed what his mouth refused to say. He didn't hate me. He was protecting himself, and that hurt more than any shout could. The 4th time I couldn't take it. He was alone in the greenhouse's back courtyard, organizing tools. I walked up to him without announcing myself, feeling my heart pound in my ribs as if it wanted to escape me. He sensed my approach, but didn't. Tone. I stood there behind him for a moment that felt like a lifetime. And then I spoke, low, steady, with the pain threading every word. You want to know why I left? He didn't answer right away. He just set the tools aside with a calm that unnerved me and turned slowly to face me. His eyes were darker than I remembered. More mature, more marked. No, he said curtly. I want to know why you never came back. That disarmed me. All my internal preparation, all the rehearsed words shattered before that simple sentence. Because he was right. I could have come back. I could have written, called, explained, but I didn't. I moved on. I was swept into a world of obligations and crowds, and I hid there. Maybe out of cowardice, maybe pride, maybe fear of not being enough. But the truth is, his absence hurt me every day. Only pain isn't an excuse, and love, alone, doesn't. Sustain distance without courage. Because I thought it was the right thing, I answered, swallowing tears. I thought letting you go would be better than making you wait. I thought pushing you away would protect you from me, from what my life would become, from what I'd have to turn into. My voice broke, but I continued. But I was wrong. And I know I have no right to anything. I just wanted you to know that. To know that even far away, I loved you in every place I was. And that today, after everything, I still love you. He didn't say anything. He stood there, looking at me, fists clenched and eyes glistening, trying to hold back a sea I knew he'd carried for years. He didn't embrace me. He didn't forgive me. But he didn't turn his back either. And in that tense moment of silence, I felt something shift. Not because he accepted me back, but because for the first time, he heard my truth. And sometimes, that's what begins to rebuild what time destroyed. After that day, something between us hung in the air, like an invisible thread, still fragile, but finally stretched between 2 worlds that had lost each other. We didn't start seeing each other often, nor did we walk side by side as if nothing had happened. But the silence changed texture. It was no longer made of distance and hurt. Now it was made of things that still needed to be said with time, with care. And that change, though subtle, sustained me. because I knew the space between us was no longer empty. It was being inhabited again, even if by uncertainty. I started visiting the greenhouse more. Sometimes just to buy flowers for my grandmother, other times to watch from afar how he tended to the plants. There was beauty in everything he did. His movements weren't rushed. He seemed to give himself to the earth like someone who understands that things take time to bloom. And that's what hurt and healed me at the same time. He'd learned to live without me, to plant and harvest without the promise of anyone by his side. And yet, there I was, invading the garden he'd cultivated after my absence. On a cloudy afternoon, as he watered small violets lined up in ceramic pots, I approached slowly and said, without preamble, "Are you still angry at me?" He kept watering for a moment, then turned off the hose and looked into my eyes. "I was," he said, "but now I just try to understand." His voice carried no venom, just exhaustion. Exhaustion from fighting something he might never have stopped feeling. "You know what hurt the most?" he continued. "It wasn't that you left. It was that you didn't even try to come back." His words pierced my chest with precision. It was true. I didn't try. Because there was a guilt so rooted in me it made me believe I didn't deserve to return. And even now, with all the courage I'd gathered to come back, that guilt was still there, disguised as hope, dressed in love, but alive. "I didn't come back because I thought you didn't want me anymore," I said, trying not to cry. "And because I was afraid that seeing you again, there'd be nothing left in you that remembered me." He gave a half smile, sad but true. "The problem," he replied, "is that I remember everything. That's when I understood. The love was still there, not intact, not unscathed, but present, and that was enough to keep going, not to rebuild what we were, but to discover what we could still be." His gaze promised nothing, but it didn't close the door either, and I clung to that like someone grasping the edge of the shore after drifting for too long. In the days that followed, we began to share small spaces again, not as reunited lovers, but as two survivors of a story that still hurt to tell. He let me be there, in the greenhouse, on the outskirts, in the more spontaneous words we exchanged without thinking. Slowly, our conversations became less tense, more natural. We talked about the plants, the weather, how my grandmother still stood like a rock against the winds of old age. But every now and then, silence stretched between us, as if we both knew the most important things still hadn't been said or lived. One night, he asked me to help him reorganize the greenhouse before a big delivery. The simple idea of being by his side for hours stirred me more than it should have, and maybe he knew it. We worked in silence for a while, until he set his gloves on the workbench, leaned against the wall, and watched me for a few seconds too long. "Are you still waiting for me to say I forgive you?" The question came firm, but not cruel. I took a deep breath. "No, I just wanted you to know I haven't forgotten you, that I haven't moved on, and that despite everything, I still love you." It was the first time I'd repeated those words since the afternoon I returned. But there, in the dim light of that warm, humid greenhouse, they sounded truer than ever. He looked at me for so long, I thought he wouldn't respond. But then he approached slowly, with the care of someone who knows a hasty move could break what took so long to rebuild. "I never stopped loving you," he said, "but loving you started to hurt, to the point I thought forgetting was safer." My heart tightened at his honesty. There was no romance in his words, just raw truth. "And now?" I whispered. "Now?" He replied, "I'm trying to remember what it was like to love you without pain." We didn't kiss that night. There were no vows, no promises. Just the silence between two hearts exhausted from waiting. But the next day, he brought me a coffee. And the day after, he sent a short message with a mundane question. And so, With small gestures, we began to draw closer. Each day was a choice, each word a step. Until one ordinary morning, amid flower arrangements and dirt-stained hands, he touched my face with his fingertips and said, "Maybe it's too soon to say this again, but if you still love me, then let me try again. No past, no excuses. Just us." I smiled. Not with euphoria, but with relief, because after everything, after so many years and so much pain, the love was still there, wounded but alive. And finally, it was no longer a secret locked in my chest. It was a new beginning. Deciding to start again was like entering an old house that was once home. Everything was there, but it needed dusting. Windows opened, light let in slowly. The intimacy between me and Nathan didn't return like a hurricane, but like a breeze that gathers strength. And it was in that rhythm that we remade ourselves, day by day, gesture by gesture, without rushing to prove anything to anyone. Because now loving wasn't urgency, it was choice. And choosing someone after everything was a deeper kind of love. Loving Nathan again was, in truth, rediscovering myself. For the first time, I wasn't just the princess, the heir, the woman shaped to fit speeches, tailored clothes, and rooms, full of expectations. With him, I was just Anneliese, with my imperfections, my fears, my stumbling words, and still loved. We didn't escape to a perfect story. There were still sidelong glances in town, assumptions in the subtext, memories that sometimes hurt more than they comforted. But above all that, there was something new between us. Freedom. The freedom to be who we are, with all that remained and all that could still come. My grandmother passed that autumn, and it was the first time Nathan held my hand in public. He stayed by my side through the entire funeral without needing to say anything, just present. And in that moment I realized there was no longer a void in me, because the man I once waited for and fled from was now by my side, not as a promise, but as a certainty. After that, he started coming to family, dinners, and slowly the walls came down. My father, who once insisted on keeping up appearances, began asking about Nathan with more neutrality. There was no epic reconciliation, but there was respect. And coming from where we did, that was already a miracle. Years later, living in a small house on the town's outskirts, far from palaces and close to his garden, I write this part of my life with a peace only time grants. I learned that some stories don't need to be erased for others to begin. That true love isn't the kind that never falters, but the kind that survives distance, silence, and return. And that sometimes all it needs is a single phrase, spoken with an open heart. I still love you. And the most beautiful thing is that when you truly love, those words don't arrive late. They arrive at the right time, when both are finally ready to hear them. Today, when people call me princess, I just smile, because I know that title, as grand as it sounds, never fully defined me. I was shaped by a world of duties, but I was reborn as a woman when I had the courage to return. The love I left behind wasn't a memory. It was a living part of me, silenced by fear. And the man I once loved in secret now walks beside me with steady steps, hands dirty with soil, and a heart that learned to forgive with the same strength it knew to wait. Nathan isn't a prince. He's better than that. He's real. And he taught me that loving someone doesn't mean never leaving, but having the courage to return when there's still something to be said. We built a quiet life, far from the world's gaze, but full of meaning. We plant flowers and promises, face the scars of the past with serenity, and cultivate a kind of love that needs no witnesses, only roots. If there's anything I've learned, it's that some loves don't die, they just wait, at the right time for someone to have the courage to return and say, I still love you.